Iyayi belongs to the family of all those who work to earn, and all those who have chosen, in addition to working to survive, but to devote substantial part of their time and intellect to struggle for a better country, of which a functioning university system is a precondition. I can imagine, I've listened to all the statements. We're here with heavy hearts, we learned of the death with shock, the death was untimely, and so on and so forth. But the Iyayi that I know would have even liked to contest some of these statements. When is death timely? What is the right time to die? What is the right place to die? What is the best manner? What is the best location? Because Iyayi believe that everything must be settled, debated, contested, and eventually agreed or disagreed. So I asked ASU leadership, what was the best way if we were to make recommendation? I am sure you will find that this concept of untimely death is a very problematic word. And to the men of God, and even to the dean of the faculty who spoke earlier, he reminds us that there is heaven and hell, at least for believers. But there is a precondition. Nobody goes to heaven without transiting from here. And I'm sure if we are to vote, even in ASU ESCO, those who will vote in favor of heaven are likely to be much more than those who might just abstain from voting. Not to talk of those who will vote for hell. So I therefore like us to appreciate that there are matters in which democracy has no place. God has absolute monopoly to decide when and how we are born. No consultation, no negotiation, no agreement, no disagreement, and there can even be no strike over it. And so on his own, without consultation, he chose that Iyayi be born the very day and at the very location that he was born. And many of us didn't even know him. He was probably weeping when he was born, crying. I'm told that is a precondition before if a child doesn't cry, that there's something. Medical people know that better. I don't know why it is so. And therefore, I ask us to accept both the immediate family, but also the militant, progressive, and dogged family of ASU. That painful as it is, that our comrade died on the roadside in an auto accident which everyone agreed was apparently avoidable. I use the word apparently because, again, as a believer, I cannot pronounce with such authority, because if I go beyond that, I'm playing God. And I noticed when the ASU president, and he has, by the way, a very revolutionary face. I am going to research whether he ever find time to smile, because when I watch him on telly, he pronounced with revolutionary finality. And I do not envy you at this moment, because I know you are in a very, very complicated role conflict, as you can see from some of the statements on this podium. But God that took Iyayi will give you the wisdom, the courage, the determination, and above all, the blessing that this strike never end without benefits. Let me say that my first contact with Iyayi was as a young man, a blue-collar worker who managed to become the secretary of the Textile Workers Union in Kaduna, and also had become, Iyayi then was the president of ASU. And someone told me that he comes, as Nigerians will say, do you know that that man comes from your place? Of course, and I know that my place is Ubego. Am I right? Is it Ubego? And just recall the statement made by ASU president. And I've heard that myself several times from different quarters. When an elder statesman tried to cancel a restless young man who, in his judgment, chose to endanger his life when he should lobby such a prominent person to be named a minister so that he can then do the rest things that ministers do. But the young man chose to fight as if this man was not his elder, and he had to say, this is quoting ASU president. If it is not correct, I have witnesses that you said so. That Iyayi, this country is not worth dying for. In other words, go and look for your own. And that is often the lot of those who choose to dedicate their life on the side of struggle, particularly when they have alternatives. But just look at Iyayi's life. After his education, he had a choice either to work for oil companies, or he chose academic, knowing that that is not the best paying job. He also chose and elected to be a member of ASU. And his colleague appreciated his leadership qualities and elected him to lead them, initially at the level of Uniben. And knowing ASU to the extent that I know, I don't know everything about them, before they can allow you or vote for you to be their president, it's not a matter of zoning or rotation. It is not even the sentiment of you are the most celebrate, you are the most eloquent, you are the most rugged. My understanding is, how clear are you? How politically clear are you in terms of the issues, in terms of the struggle? How far can you go, even in the face of temptation and intimidation? And unless you pass what Rotarians might call the four-way test, you cannot smell anything near the leadership of ASU, not to talk about becoming the president of ASU. And that is why when you look at the history of ASU, they have managed to maintain an image that has a level of consistency that even those who are blind can feel. But you know, those who have spoken before me reminded us that the comrade we are celebrating, and it's a celebration, was ready to fight and die for what he believed in. But you know that it is easier to say it than to practice it. Because in the course of my own union work, there are people who say to me, I'm by your side, we are behind you. And before the first year gas lasts, they have taken off. And by the time you look by yourself, God, that policeman wicked, he nearly killed me. But the point I want to make is that when people say that, and it is true, that Iyayi was ready to die for what he believed in, for those of you who are interested in empirical research, is there any better proof than the manner in which he died? He joined ASU. He led ASU. He retired from the presidency of ASU. He continued to associate, to contribute, to organize, to mobilize, and he died in the process. Is it not therefore a fact that he lived and died for what he believed in? So, those who ask the younger one to interpret Iyayi's life correctly, I do hope that the younger ones will understand that. That those who say the country has nothing, it's not worth dying for, they are actually saying that this country is not worth living for. But let me say this other point, and I do not intend to embarrass anyone. Just look at the fact of life, and we are now dealing with empirical evidence. I'm not a researcher, but I learned that word probably from Iyayi. Empirical evidence. Those who said to Iyayi, this country is not worth dying for, they themselves have no pastor. So whether you believe a country is worth living for or dying for, the truth is death will come when it will come. The difference is how will your stewardship be recounted. I believe therefore that, like I said to the wife and the children before, you have every reason to celebrate this occasion and replace your black with white clothes. Because it is not Iyayi's darkest hour. And I've also heard people who say it is better to bow out when the ovation is loudest. If you were to look at Iyayi's life, if he lived for another 50 years and all of us who knew him have passed away before him, will there be any ovation at all? It will be rumored that they say he was. I know historians, no matter how competent, they just can never 100% interpret history. Those who know himself, and lawyers will say that is hearsay. But we are here as witnesses to a man who did what he did for Nigeria, for the academic, for Nigeria University. You know, my very dear friend and Reverend Father got into trouble when he suggested that some of your men are no longer able to stand, some are falling by the wayside, etc. But Iyayi taught us one lesson, and that is that he is, in truth and in fact, in words and in action, a long-distance runner. I did say before in my statement on his death that even the fact that a professor, an award winner, and I understand that some of those awards carries some couple of dollars attached, because they were awarded by very reputable institutions and organizations. Not the one that some pay for to advertise and network that we are governor of the year, we are minister of the year, we are so of the year. And you might even be invited to pay for the table if you want to be so quote and unquote honored, and then advertorials will follow celebrating us as the best thing ever created by God. But Iyayi chose to travel by road. I know that there is there are flights between Benin and Abuja, and between Abuja and Kano. But it is also ASU's tradition that their leadership must pass this four-way test, which include sense of sacrifice. And ASU leaders, not just Iyayi, as far as I can recollect, because I once had a robust, or what I thought was a robust debate with the immediate past president of ASU before the present president. He was going to Abuja, and I said, why would you go by air? And he said, no, who will go by road? And then I tried to engage him in economics. And I said, but it is costlier to go by road than by air. Your time, the risk, the salary of your driver, the wear and tear of the vehicle, and all of it. And I think that Professor chose to travel by road was again his own way of demonstrating that going for union meeting is not a luxury. And he will go through the pain of traveling for about 10 hours or 11 hours in order to start a meeting that may well last all night long. So Iyayi led by example. Let me also share with you that when I was a steward at the NLC, Iyayi decided to do his sabbatical at the NLC. And I reminded him that we simply don't have the money to pay salaries, not to talk of allowances. And I didn't think he would find NLC the most appropriate place to do his sabbatical. And he said to me, it is not about the money, it's not about the salary. All I need is office space. And if you can't provide the office space, I will look for office space elsewhere, but you will at least give me space to come here, to chat, to interact, to conduct interviews, and to give me access to your files and minutes of your meetings. Because Iyayi was not only interested in democracy in Nigeria, he understood clearly that unless the parts are democratic, the whole cannot be. It is not possible to find civil society organizations being led like exactly the same way as a proprietor manages his hotel. And when you have associations like that, they cannot gather to lecture national leaders about democracy. And Iyayi chose to conduct research on the issue of internal democracy within the trade union movement, including whether or not I was democratic in the way I preside over the affairs of the NLC. If you will find his findings, they were not flattering at all. And that is Iyayi for you. When I got into Edo State, when I arrived here, one of my challenges was also to rebuild AAU, and we needed to have a council. Of course, I readily remember Iyayi and Peter Uzo Eso, who also is another guy from this part of the country who has been part of the ASU struggle. And I, as we governors like to say, in exercise of the powers conferred on me, just this small man, I appointed the professor to be a member of AAU Council. Iyayi Festus, as a member of AAU Council. By reasons of that appointment, he had become, quote unquote, a beneficiary of my goodwill, and therefore my representative on that council, and therefore part of the management. And if management are oppressors, I am supposed to have become one of the oppressors. But Iyayi for what he is. Whereas he accepts to serve, that for him was not a reason for him to begin to talk differently. So right inside the deliberation of council, Iyayi was now fighting from within council much more ruggedly than he would have fought outside council. And you know, all of us from this protest tradition, there are certain habits that simply would die away in a hurry. And they even don't need to die because they are not bad habits. Let me share with you, maybe shamelessly, depending on how you look at whether I've committed class suicide or not. The last encounter I had with Comrade Iyayi, along with other members of the council, and I think the leadership of AAU ASU, the issue of the state of the studies that the state of the universities, somebody has to help me with the appropriate, the need assessment, that's right. And he had come, now rather than to rationalize to the ASU people why they should be more moderate, Iyayi came to remind me that I have obligation to also do what I have to do. After all, he reminded me that I mediated in the crafting of the agreement that is currently in dispute. And he rolled out very effortlessly all the things that are not right. But you know, we are also taught to be stubborn, and Iyayi taught us that as well. Until now, I didn't know that Iyayi is older than me. He looks so young, and I look much older. You know? And so I was saying to him, Iyayi, you have painted one side of the picture. Namely, that the ratio of academic in relation to people is the lowest, whether in our continent or anywhere in the world. And I said to him, but now you know you are a member of council. You also must look at the other side. And that is that the same report also suggests or confirmed that in most of our universities, university management find it easier to employ non-academics, such that we have in Nigeria, at least on that score, we are the best. More non-academics in relation to academics. And I said, if we must write this other side, namely having more academics, then we must also correct the imbalance by throwing away those we don't need in the non-academics. And he said to me, I know, comrade, but you know, because you can't dispute that. But then he said, but you know, given the level of unemployment now, comrade, you have to take a global view of the whole challenges. So, what will it profit if we throw out more people at a time when we need to employ more people? But you know, I also tried to learn from him not to give up. And I said, but the challenge of management is to take decisions that may not even be pleasant. And the primary purpose of AAU is not job creation. It's teaching and research. Jobs were created as a result of this need. Now, if that need is being lost, then we need to revisit the fundamentals, including checking and balancing what is not balanced. We can't manage by sentiment. We must manage on the basis of the primary purpose of a business. The reason the time for setting up AAU, I decided to stand my ground. And the course was clear for much more contestation. But Iyayi was arguing with me, forgetting that I'm now the governor. So, just to say that, I stand here to give testimony to the fact that Iyayi spoke truth to power. As much as he spoke truth to fellow comrades. And he did everything by example. For me, I'm clear that when Iyayi died, that was the day he was meant to die. I'm not sure that was the location. Because after all, the Bible tells us that nothing happened except the one that God has blessed. And that is why even when politicians rig elections, they say it's God that gives power. though men know that this one, God could not have been the master rigger of election. So my tag this morning, and I'm sorry if my comment is not particularly structured, because as you notice, I wasn't supposed to speak here, but I actually beg for the opportunity to say something, because if, as Father Obiya said, Iyayi is seeing us, and he knew and he has seen that I came here, and I didn't say anything, he will be wondering. And when I join him eventually, he is likely to deal with me, because then he will be my senior there. So I ask you, the president of ASU, the leadership of ASU, it hurts. It hurts no matter what we say. When someone who was close, who was resourceful, who we could lean on our moment of need, and who was coming to participate in a crucial meeting that required that you bring out your best, that along the road, you didn't get there. No words can comfort you. But you don't really need to be comforted. Because in choosing the path that you have chosen, I want to put it to you, as we say sometimes at union meetings, that you knew that this struggle can take life. You may not have known that it will take life by the roadside. When Iyayi was fighting the University of Benin, there were lecturers who were prepared to betray. And some people thank God that they were not caught in the act. And for 9 years, our comrade was outside. But he proved that even when the oppressor has done his worst, a resourceful intellectual can keep himself busy without bowing before the oppressor. Because very often people are afraid to risk because of the penalty. But I often argue that the price of keeping quiet, and in fact, the moment you keep quiet when you ought to speak out, you are already imprisoned. Because what makes the world different from imprisonment is the restriction of movement and absence of debate, and the right to stand and to do what you believe in. You are restricted. That is why it's called prison. You as academic can define prison better. And so the man is in prison when you abstain from doing what you ought to know, what your conscience tells you is right, or you abstain out of fear. Because even the man you are afraid of, he will die when he will die. So, to ASU, let the struggle be what it has been. Let the blood of Iyayi not only fortify you, but sharpen your intellect and service your appetite to fight for a greater Nigeria. But there was one thing I discussed with Iyayi once, and I will ask you to reflect on that. I think in the later years of Iyayi, he recognized that Nigeria will not change its character by the number of man-hours we devote to striking. And that those who are in government can never be persuaded to govern according to the values of ASU. Because they seek power, obviously, to do what they are doing. They can grant concession, but they will not be fundamental concessions. Which is why we renew collective agreement year in, year out. Inflation sets in, what we clap for yesterday become obsolete, and the oppressor keep accumulating. Iyayi told me of his desire to contest election to the Nigeria Senate. just before the last National Assembly election. But I told him from my own experience, he needed to have started a little earlier because this business requires both vertical and horizontal mobilization. Hello? The point I am making to ASU is that, and not only ASU, I have also shared this with my comrades in the NLC. Let us spare some time. We cannot be politically neutral. We cannot be neutral to partisan politics. We cannot keep quiet and allow imposition. Democracy will not flourish without the fear of electoral defeat. And when people impose themselves, all of us should rise to say no. Protest, as ASU have shown, is not a matter for blue-collar, uneducated people. It is better done even by those who have both physical and intellectual capacity to engage those responsible. So, if ASU will collaborate with the rest of progressive segment of society, I believe, no. I am talking seriously now. I'm not talking here as, yeah. There are all kinds of things going on. But we can see already that certain forces of nature are at work. It is said that when big fish finish eating up the smaller fish, they must, as of necessity, get at each other's throat. So there may well be that in the midst of this confusion, where people are afraid of 2015, ASU and others can turn that to an opportunity. I just know that Nigeria will change just by protesting. It can change by contesting for power, seeking power, acquiring power, and using it decisively to reorder the way in which we work. Iyayi was beginning to think along those lines. So I ask you, the family, to accept that there is nothing we can now do. And I imagine the loneliness arising from the departure of a husband. But they say that God is the husband of a widow. So may God be your husband. Amen. And for the fatherless, may God be your father. Amen. And for ASU, I want to assure you, Iyayi contributed intellectually in advising me. I never had to accept all the advice, but he helped to deepen my reflections, to recognize that however you look at a matter, there is always more than one way of doing anything right. And the one you settle for will be a function of your values. So, I will like, as a steward, and I know ASU has this policy as well, of not taking anything from government. Because during that negotiation that I was involved in, they brought water, and ASU will not drink government water. They brought tea, ASU will not take government tea. Although I didn't think they were right, because government does not have tea, it doesn't have water. It is ASU members, along with other workers, who pay taxes that government appropriate. There is no government money, it's taxpayers' money. And if taxpayers' money is used for taxpayers, I find no ideological contradiction. If you accept this, then I'd like to, on behalf of Edo taxpayers, to assure ASU National and ASU Uniben that one of the ways, certainly not the only way, for generations yet unborn to know of the man called Iyayi, beyond those who will read this book, all those who will come here, is to translate it to action. One of the things that, according to the dean, and I believe him, that Iyayi was thinking of how he can help to strengthen Uniben ASU by building a secretariat. A secretariat for struggle, not a secretariat for establishment, where resolutions will be passed and they will be effected. And because this is not a launching occasion, and I don't want the message to be lost, I'd like to simply say to you in principle, after this event, I have escorted our brother to his place of birth. I will quietly offer to ASU Edo taxpayers' contribution to the realization of that project. If you choose to call ASU now, that will be fine. On behalf of the government and the good people of Edo State, who Iyayi did not only represent, but he projected those core values of the Edo man, the fighting spirit of the Edo man, the courage of the Edo man, the resourcefulness of the Edo man, the truthfulness of the Edo man, and the reliability of the Edo man. All of those he demonstrated. And today Nigerians are united in this hall to celebrate an illustrious Edo man who has finished his assignment and he has gone back to rest. May he truly, Iyayi, may you truly rest in perfect peace. Thank you.